has largely been propping up the Naira for quite some time. Do you expect the currency market to post a nice recovery in 2011 on the back of higher oil prices?
Well, that will depend. You know, this is an election year, so that will depend pretty much on what happens as we run up to the elections and the period immediately after. Like you said, we've had strong oil prices, which has helped to support our reserves. Throughout 2010, we generally saw a month-on-month decline on reserves, but fortunately that trend recently reversed, and we've had some slight strengthening of our national reserves in the last month or two.
Looking at the central bank holding its first FX auction today, also just looking at the review of this auction, what it actually means for the forex market going forward.
We saw pretty much what we expected. In terms of volume, we haven't had a WDAS, which is the auction from the central bank. We haven't had one for the past 3 weeks, so therefore there would be some level of demand, which is what we saw. Total demand today was $390 million. What we saw on the exchange rate side was pretty much to be expected, maybe a slightly steeper devaluation than we would have thought. Between the last auction and today, there was a 33 kobo devaluation, bringing the official rate to 149.50. And we would have thought maybe more in the light of 20-25 kobo, so that's a bit more than expected. What tends to happen is that at some point we expect CBN to put up a higher amount of dollars for sale and then therefore stabilize the currency, which is what they've been doing over the past few years.
Kubi, let's touch on the bond market as a whole and your outlook for 2011. Some cite AMCON's bond issuance as a potential risk factor for bonds. We keep talking about oversupply. Do you agree with this sentiment?
I think even the authorities agree in a way with that sentiment, and the reason is this: the AMCON bonds came in on the last day of the year, that's the 31st of December, so the impact in 2010 in terms of trading and prices was negligible. However, what we did see happen in 2010 was the reopening of a number of issues and the fact that people that were holding bonds started to take losses because yields were going up. What we think may happen this year, in fact right now we have only 2 maturities trading. What we've seen so far this year is that the government is placing more reliance on treasury bills. They may be raising shorter tenured funds through the T-bills, which tend to be less volatile. You hold them for a shorter period and the chances of making a loss against it, even especially over a sustained period of time, are reduced. So far we haven't had a bond auction in 2011. The bond calendar isn't out yet, although we expect it to be out next week, but we've already seen 2 treasury bill auctions, and we're expecting a primary auction next week.
Let's touch on, you spoke about the elections this year and that really being a really key indicator for foreign investors wanting to buy up assets in Nigeria. But what about the spate of bombings across the country? Is this going to be an issue going forward for foreign investors? We keep talking about political risks in Africa, and this is one of the things that scare investors away.
Well, it's a bit unfortunate what we've seen in the run-up to Christmas, just Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. I have to admit that's been unfortunate, and of course across West Africa hasn't been the most peaceful at the moment. What we've tended to see in Nigeria is that those kinds of violence have been contained. They've been contained in certain parts of the country, mostly in the northern part, and a lot of the investment activity takes part in the south. So what we would hope is that government can come up with some containment measures to make sure there's no escalation of violence, it doesn't spread to other parts, especially the business areas and the commercial areas. So long as those areas remain relatively stable, we expect to still see significant flows, maybe more after the election. There'll probably be a bit of nervousness for the first few months, but elections are early in the year and we expect to see a pickup in the second half once that goes smoothly.